I'm Keith Wilson with the Schmidt Music Trombone Shop, back with another instrument review for you. And today, as you can tell, I have another one of the great instruments from Butler Trombones. Now, I have done a previous video talking about their JJ model, their 508 small bore tenor, but since I made that video, the Butler team has made a whole bunch of different additions to their offerings. And so I have another one of their JJs, but with some of the new innovations, some of the new projects that the Butler team has been working on that I think really changes some of the performance of the instrument and, again, adds some different options for players out there. So I'm really excited to share this new altered version of the JJ with you here. So I'm going to, of course, take a play on it, talk about the experience afterwards. I'm going to be playing all of this today on my trusty S.E. Shires Michael Davis Plus mouthpiece. One of the things I love about what I get to do in the trombone shop is to have these relationships with these really custom makers, people who are true artisans in what they're doing, and to see kind of their process and to see kind of the evolution that they go through as they continue to try to tweak and add on to what they are doing. And we see this whether we're talking mouthpieces, whether we're talking things like mutes, or in this case, instruments. And so the Butler team, and Butler Trombones, we continue to see new changes and tweaks and additions to what they are offering for their customers, for the trombone community here. And as I mentioned, this JJ model has a lot of those new innovations kind of all in one package. So the bass instrument, of course, is still the same here. So this is their 508 hand slide here. Obviously the same, nickel silver construction here, nickel silver inner tubes, chrome plated, all of that there. The standard JJ taper, 8-inch bell. But beyond that, they've made quite a number of changes to it. So one of the new things that they've added in the last 6 months or so has been a counterweight. So their satellite counterweight, which of course is removable, is actually, I really like this idea because it has a lot of adjustability to it. So, we have, and I've talked in the past about the difference that the counterweight can make in how an instrument performs and some of the positioning of it, etc. It changes how the instrument resonates. We kind of get this, right? And so, of course, with a lot of counterweights, we have the ability to, well, to a certain extent, maybe change the weight of the counterweight depending on the exact weight we're using. We can change the lateral position here, but what's really cool about the satellite counterweight is not only does it give us the ability to actually change the weight of the counterweight itself there, but it allows us to change the position not only laterally, but rotationally back and forth as well, which means that not only does it give us the ability to play around a little bit more with the center of gravity, where things are balanced. And honestly, that's, one of the big reasons why the Butler team started offering these is because, especially with their small bore tenors, even though they are incredibly lightweight, they, like most other small bore tenor trombones, tend to be a little bit bell heavy. It's just, it goes along with the territory, which is why a lot of instruments need that counterweight. So the Butler team, again, decided, okay, we're going to add a counterweight on there, but again, we're going to build some adjustability into it, which I think is really great. And I do think to an extent it does change how the instrument plays. So we've got the counterweight here. We have their brand new carbon fiber lead pipes. So in the past, Butler had been using the lead pipes from Edwards. So these were brass lead pipes, obviously threaded. Using that setup here, but they have now gone to using and making in-house their own carbon fiber lead pipes with carbon fiber 3D printed collars as well. So it's a different experience than the brass lead pipes. It's something that takes me a little bit to kind of get used to how they play, what they need in terms of airflow energy. So I'll talk about that, but this is their new innovation, and they are including with all of their trombones 2 different lead pipes, a shorter one and a longer one, which to me makes quite a difference in how the instruments play. So we've got the lead pipes here. We have their cut bell setup here. So this is not as new. They've been doing cut bells for a while here, but what this does have is their newest design for the collar, which is, again, 3D printed carbon fiber. They played around with brass, with aluminum, with Delrin, but the carbon fiber, the 3D printed options, I think has really opened up some interesting stuff with it here. One of the things that Butler talks about with this is that compared to a lot of the other collars out there, which tend to have fairly fine threading, this one is fairly coarse threading, which means that it goes on in about 2.5 turns, give or take here. Got it. So for somebody looking for ease and convenience, I think, again, that's a really nice option. Obviously, we understand the benefits that gives to the player in terms of more compact case options. We've also talked about what a difference the collar can make, especially on our brass instruments, in terms of the resonance, projection, response, all of that stuff. I think this does a little bit different, provides a little bit different experience. I'll talk about that in a second. And finally, this instrument also has their brand new single radius tuning slide and hand slide crook as well. In the past, with their small bore tenors, they were using a little bit more squared off dual radius slide. Now they have available. They'll build either for you, either the dual radius or their more rounded single radius. And as you might expect, it definitely changes up some of the airflow. It's more open blowing, which is what the David Butler team was kind of looking for. That's what they were aiming for, to provide a little bit different airflow option within all this. So it's a lot of different stuff all in one package. So what do all the different individual components bring to the table? Well, I talked a little bit about the counterweight. Let's talk about the lead pipes for a minute. So we have a couple of different instruments that have the carbon fiber lead pipes right now. We have the JJ here. I do have one of their lemon drop models, the more of a stock lemon drop that also has the carbon fiber lead pipes. As I mentioned, it's really a different experience than the brass lead pipes. I find, just like I've talked about with the carbon fiber, what I think it needs in terms of the overall airflow, it needs a fair amount of energy to put into it because the carbon fiber resists resonance, right? Vibration. It vibrates, but it takes a different effort, different energy to get to do so. The lead pipe definitely plays into that. So as compared to just the instrument with brass lead pipe, I feel like with this, I have to be even a little bit more intentional with the energy I'm putting through the instrument. If I'm not thoughtful, and again, I think for somebody who has just a little bit more efficient airflow, I think, to me, I could see this feeling a little bit deader right off the bat. And it should be noted with all of the Butler instruments, and David Butler himself has talked about this, there is kind of an adjustment period a little bit. And I guess to a certain extent, I view it less as I have to change how I play in order to play this instrument. I'm not a huge fan of that. I think the instrument should meet you where you are as a player and give you immediate benefits. But with that being said, because the material does just resonate, respond so differently, I think there is a little bit of an adjustment period. And the more I play on these lead pipes, the more I don't even want to say getting used to how they play. I think my body is just kind of figuring out, okay, this is how I need to use it. And as I continue to get used to it, I am finding there is a little bit different. It brings certain benefits. I feel like there's certain efficiencies to it that I really like. For example, I think this, along with some of the other innovations, are doing some really nice things in the upper register, for example. So I have also found that with the lead pipes, the two different lengths make a real difference in what it does with the instrument. So for example, with the lemon drop, I found that the shorter of the two lead pipes definitely was the right fit, at least for me on it. Otherwise, it felt very, very resistant. With this particular instrument, whether it's because of the 508 bore, whether it's because of the single radius crooks, which I think may make a difference, whatever it was, I ended up finding that the longer the two lead pipes gave me more of the directionality I was looking for. It didn't make it necessarily brighter, but it helped to clean up the sound, help it give it a little bit more focus and more initiation to the sound. So we've got the lead pipes happening, then we've got the single radius crooks here. I definitely think, again, compared to the other JJs we've had in, it definitely has opened up that experience in a really nice way. And I'm not sure whether it's because of the tuning slides or the lead pipes. It might be a little bit of both. I think the overall tonal experience with this instrument is a little bit more even. In some of the past ones, I talked a little bit how I felt at softer dynamics, it felt almost smoky. There was this real broad, soft warmth to it, which is kind of nice. It gave you a little bit of color you can play around with. But when you started leaning into it, the sound clarified. It cleaned up the edge of the sound, had more definition, but it still maintained a lot of the core. What I'm getting out of this setup overall is that it's a little bit more even. It still has this real nice depth of sound, but whether I was on the ballad, whether I was doing All You Things You Are, a little bit more bop type setup, it was, again, just the overall tonal response through the dynamics felt a little bit more even. The other thing, like I mentioned, is that I felt like this gave a little bit different accessibility to the upper register. Accessibility, it slots differently. As I've been going through and I've been working on trying to develop some of my flexibility in the upper register, with this particular instrument, it feels like just where everything lines up a little bit differently. I end up kind of questioning myself a little bit at times, like, okay, am I really on the partial I think I am? It feels different, but not necessarily in a bad way. In a certain way, it does feel like, oh, it's making things a little bit easier. It's giving me access to the 13th, even 14th partial a little bit differently than I've experienced with, certainly some of his other models, or even some of the other tried and true professional small bore tenors that we have. So I haven't decided yet if it's a good thing or bad thing. It's different. It's not bad. I'll put it that way. It's definitely not a bad thing. The access in the upper register is great. It's just a little bit different, and I think it could have a lot of benefits to what's happening there. So we have all of those changes. Finally, of course, we have the cut bell. Of all of the alterations, kind of the different options that we have on this particular instrument, I kind of feel like the collar is making the least amount of difference to me. Now, I'd have to really sit down and compare side by side with it, but knowing again what the collars do on the brass instruments, the weight that they provide, how it changes the resonance, etc., it would make sense to me that because of the extreme lightweight nature of the collar, again, we're talking, a 3D printed collar made out of, an extremely lightweight material as it is. I feel like the collar is not having the same kind of impact that it does on a lot of the other models that we have. And I could be totally wrong. And obviously, David Butler and his team, they are the authorities on this. Just from my experience, I'm not sure if they're making a whole lot of difference. And again, that's not necessarily a bad thing. There are certainly plenty of people who don't like what the cut bell collar setups do with brass trombones. They change up the tonal response, some of the slotting, all of the weight of the response, all of that. It changes a lot of that. It doesn't always fit for everybody. And so I'm not upset by removing this as a variable and having it just as a really nice option for somebody to have a really compact trombone. So All told, again, just like everything else that we've experienced with Butler, a great playing instrument. And again, it's really, really fun for me to see the kind of constant innovation that these instruments are going through right now. I think, it's really enjoyable to see and to be a part of, and I'm glad that we're able to have these instruments in so I can share these experiences firsthand. So, as always, thank you so much for watching here. If you liked the video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please think about doing that, hitting that notification button so that you can be a part of our community here of viewers. If you have any thoughts about what you heard, have experience with the Butler instruments, feel free to leave them in the comments. And of course, you can find the Trombone Shop on Facebook and Instagram. As always, thanks for watching.